Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. And I want to talk about capacitive discharge ignition systems and my portable CDIs. We're going to build a CDI in this video, but let me just go through the different generations. This was generation number 1. You can see when I built it, the leads are a little short. This is bent, which makes it a little hard to get into some systems. So when I built generation number 2, I made the leads quite a lot longer, right? I went with the straight, and that made things better. Internally, things also got better. When I built this guy, right, I used a 12-volt CDI box. This was meant for a GY6 engine, right? And the bad thing about that is when it goes to spark, right, it puts the spark a little sooner top dead center, which means as you're going to pull over an engine, if it's more of a high performance engine, I'm talking specifically Kawasaki's, I have a lot of trouble with this, right? What happens is it has a tendency to pull back. It has a tendency to hurt your arm, or if you're kick-starting it, it has a tendency to kick back and try to throw you over the top. These CDI boxes do two things. They obviously generate a nice powerful spark, but they also determine where they're going to put the spark. Built into your engine design is how advanced the spark is going to be, how far above top dead center it's going to be. That's in your engine design. And then what this box does is it kind of slows the spark down a little bit, right? After it sees the pulse, it takes a little while for it to fire off the spark. So at idle, it puts it closer to top dead center, and when you're racing around, it puts it more before top dead center. And you want to do that because it takes a little while for the little explosion in the engine to take place, and at idle, that's not that big a deal. But as you're racing it, you really want it more out front to get better performance, right? So this guy puts it a little too far out front, so it has a tendency to kick back. So other than the longer leads and all that, I kept the same box, the same light right here when I built this guy. But this particular CDI box doesn't quite advance. It moves the spark. The word they use is retard. It retards the spark a little bit more. So this is easier to pull over. The longer leads makes it easier to use. The straight plug makes it easier to get on the spark plug. But even this box has some problems, because though when I turn it on, right, I can see that light up. Same with this guy. I really don't know the condition of the batteries, right? I have no way of determining that. Also, sometimes you might kind of want to use an onboard type battery. So with that, I came up with the next generation of CDI box. And let me show you what I'm up to, and then we're actually going to build it. So if you're going to build one of these portable CDI boxes, or rig up one of these CDIs to run on your all-terrain vehicle, pit bike, or whatever, three-wheeler, this is what you need. All this comes in a kit, right? Comes with the harness. Comes with the 4-pin CDI. See, there's only 4 pins in there. That's how you can tell it's a DC model. And it comes with the coil. So you get all of this in a kit. I'll provide the link for this. You could get it from our friends at Amazon, or you could get it from eBay. It costs about $20, so that's no big strain. this is obviously a have to have. Next thing, I went with the pigtail. I'm not going to put my 12 volts in here. I want to set this up so that I can run it off of the engine or something else. So the pigtail makes that easy, right? I'm going to put this little voltage gauge in there. These go for like $6 to $10, depending if you get US stock or you're willing to wait for them to come in from China. So this tells you what voltage is there. You need a switch to turn the whole situation on and off, and you need this little plastic box, right? I got this, you know, at a dollar store, and I think there were 2 of them for $1. So you're looking at somewhere around 20, somewhere around, call it 5, somewhere around 10. I mean, and $1, right? Small numbers to put this thing together for yourself. Depending on the box you're going to use and so forth, you might want to make some modifications. I cut this loose, right? Decided I didn't want that. Then it's just a matter of making sure everything fits in the box and that the lid closes, right? Now, this box, I'm sure if you submerged it in a pond, it would take on water. I'm going to call it water resistant. And I'm going to try not to poke any more holes in this than I have to. And I'm going to try to make it so that the holes I poke in this, the wires that go through those holes are tight, right? That way you don't take in a bunch of water. Here is the wire harness, and the only thing I did to change this was there was an extra black wire with a white stripe that went through there. I got it out of there because it wasn't needed, and why have an extra wire floating around in the box to cause trouble. Putting this together, not all that hard, right? I'm going to try to not alter this at all other than taking that extra wire out of there. Right, these 2 wires, black and yellow and the green, they plug into this thing. Remember, this stuff also made in China, so sometimes things go easy and sometimes you gotta fight with them a bit. What's left is squeezing this whole rat's nest into the box. Once you plug in things that plug in as I showed you, what you're going to need is between these 2 wires, the black and red and the green, you're going to have to put power in. And remember, we talked about putting the power on one of these. And as you look at this, remember the following. If this is coming from a battery, the buried end, like right here, see how the buried end is red, right? So this wire would go hooked to a battery, right? You try to protect the positive. So for this side, for the side of this guy, right, you don't have to protect the positive because there's nothing coming out of here, right? The positive is protected for the battery side. So as you're clipping things to length, right, and these basically have to go here like that, and then the blue and white and the green, these got to come out, and I'm going to do it with this and this. And I have a tendency to run an extra ground out so that I could clip it directly to the head. Some all-terrain vehicles run two wires out for the pulse generator. So if that's the case, right, I want to have 2 separate wires for the pulse generator. And then just to make sure this guy is grounded properly, right, I want to run an extra wire out between that and the head, right? That way we know that you're getting all the spark. Your spark isn't working its way through this. By the way, if you do have one of those, you can burn these up. Like this says bad all over it. Kind of hang on to it as a prop. And to also tell you guys, when you order this kit, right, sometimes you get a discount for buying more than one. I recommend buying more than one, right? If it doesn't work, you want the extra parts to make sure things are available. And by the way, occasionally they don't wire these correctly. So if you put the whole thing together and you get, I'll see the comment come in, it doesn't work. What did I do wrong? Sometimes they put the wires in the wrong places. And you could kind of look one of these things up, 4-pin CDI, and see what's what, where these wires go, and make sure they're all plugged in wrong. Sometimes they swap them. So the rat's nest is all wired up. I have a loose pulse generator here, and you can see the red wire goes to the blue, and the black wire goes to the green. Remember, black is ground. This yellow wire is also ground, and that would be the one that would be hooked to the head. You can see how it's hooked there. You hook up the spark plug wire as you would expect, right? As you're looking at the wires on here, right? Black and yellow goes to the input of the spark coil. The black with the red stripe, right, goes to the power coming from the switch, and the power coming from the switch also goes to the positive side of this guy, right? And that just leaves ground. Ground goes to everywhere. Ground goes to here. Ground goes to the negative on the battery pack. Ground goes to your spark coil. Ground goes to this wire that goes to the head. Ground goes out to here. So you got a bunch of wires twisted together for ground. The other side of the switch goes out through here, right? And one of these wires come in and go to ground. So when you turn it on, you could see I have 12.8 because I have the batteries hooked up to it. And I'm going to set up the camera, and hopefully I'm going to be able to show you that this thing actually sparks. We have ignition. Yeah, I'm just rubbing the magnet against the against the CDI, and that's where the spark's coming from. So just a matter of smashing it all into the box, making sure the wires don't pull out, and this thing is done. So does this real world work? And you guys could see I have the jump box hooked to the starter, so when I turn it on, it'll turn the starter around. Also, remember I put that little pigtail on this thing for charging, so I can plug this guy right into it. So when I turn it on, it tells me how good my battery is. And I think you guys could see that 12.8 right there. So that tells me my battery's all good, and that I have power going to this, and it's ready to go. Okay, when it comes to wiring this up, remember, right, green goes to ground, the black goes to ground for the CDI, and that keeps going to ground, and blue and white goes to the input of the CDI that does the pulse generator. So I'm just going to set up the camera, and I think that looks like a pretty good camera angle. So I'll set up the camera here. We'll give this thing a hoot of starting fluid and see if we can't get it to fire up. I think you could see everything important. So let's hit this thing with some starting fluid. Remember, just a hoot will do you. And turn this on. Good. And let's see what happens. Try some choke. There we are. So, I think I showed you guys how to build one of these portable CDI guys. By getting the batteries out of it, you could actually put that pigtail right on the ignition system of the all-terrain vehicle, assuming you have a live battery, right? That thing truly is kind of a ignition replacement module now, right? You could just put it in your little backpack and bring it along with you, and just in case for some reason your CDI goes bad or your ignition system goes bad, you can wire it right up. About troubleshooting, the harness I got, the one that went in the box right there, actually the black and yellow wire was not continuous from the plug that goes into the CDI to where that wire hooks on to the input of the spark coil, right? Only took a couple of seconds to find because you probe from one end to the other and you say, wait a minute, I got an open circuit here. So do remember, this is stuff from China. It's made very reasonably cost, which means it's made cheaply. I'll put the links to get these down on the bottom of this so you guys could build these. A frequent question I'm asked is, will it work? Does your all-terrain vehicle have a pulse generator, right? It's like, do you have hands? Do you have a pulse generator? If you have a pulse generator, this will work. I recommend the 4-pin rather than the GY6 because the advancer isn't quite as far out front. Does it work on 2 cycles? I have not tried it on a 2-cycle. Most 2-cycles, or a lot of 2-cycles, don't have a pulse generator. This thing is probably good up to about $5,000, right? 5,000 RPM. So if your 2-cycle revs higher than that, it might not be able to keep up. So something to think about. This thing does spark on every revolution of the engine. And remember, the flywheel goes around as many times as it does on a 2-cycle. So it should be able to get you up to 5,000 without too much trouble. I'm sure there'll be questions, so please ask. It's a little hard for me. I've used this on Yamaha, Kawasaki's, Suzuki's. It really, really likes Hondas. It really, really likes the China stuff. I have not used it on a Polaris because I only have one and it's a 2-stroke and it seems to be sparking. So if something is already sparking, I try not to mess with it too much. I've used it on this 660, right, or this Grizzly 600. So I have used it there and it works. I've used it on Suzuki's and it's worked. Obviously every Honda has had this on there one time or another, right? So it's really worked on everything for me. Obviously, once again, it works quite well on the China stuff. Kawasaki's, I've had it on this guy and it's worked. Some of the Kawasaki's and Yamahas, they have 2 wires that go to the pulse generator. So make sure you figure out where they are and hook up both wires. And sometimes you have to flip them over, right? to make them work. I've used it on a golf cart, right? I've used it on a Yamaha motor on a golf cart. So it seems if you have a pulse generator and you can find the 2 leads that go to your pulse generator and hook up the wires correctly, because some pulse generators, even though there's 2 wires coming out of them, one of them goes to ground. So with an ohm meter, you could figure that out pretty quickly, right? Anyway, I want to thank you all for dropping by to watch and comment and subscribe. Please remember, feet down, heads up, and get out and enjoy each and every day. Bye now.